Good day there. I am so glad to talk to you again. We just shot the video with CW, and I hope you like that. We're going to start putting more testimonials on. You're going to like this one on MS to show you the power that using healthy programs and changing the consciousness to health instead of treating these phantom diseases, the difference that makes in the regeneration of the human body. But I promised I would do a video on spirituality, and I do want to do that, so I want to go on down the line where I kind of left off. I've got a lot of questions that I want to get to, and I probably won't do that till Monday morning. Chris said he still has a question and answer video to get up yet. So please have patience with us, because trying to get all the work done around here and get those up, I wanted him to take you on a little journey around our office here so you could see how small we are, and you would realize that what we accomplish in such a small space. You know, in this video with CW, and we were talking, and she was talking about spirituality and setting back. And I know there's a lot of people, and a lot of Christians are afraid of the word spirituality. A lot of Christians sometimes are fearful of the unknown. And some words, like New Age, and words that are hyped up to mean something esoteric or something unknown or unseen. And the word cult has been assigned to a lot of teachings. And then in the dictionary, Christianity is considered a cult. So, you know, I think that the word spirituality really comes to play when an individual breaks the hold of conditioning from the mind and the emotions and starts to ask questions of the universe or of God or of themselves. Who am I? Where did I come from? What is reality really? Spirituality is the opening up and understanding that all of us are one. We're all connected. I don't care what color, what race, it doesn't matter. The beauty of creation is individuality. It's the essence of creation. In that individuality, the ego can get accentuated and create a greater separation than what really is. And so when we start becoming more isolated from the totality of things, then we start seeing things as separate. When you're taken out of your body, or you experience out-of-body journeys beyond just the tunnel, just the light, and you start traveling in worlds where there are cities and landscapes beyond description, you will also expand in your awareness of life, because the closer to God you get, the more aware you get of all life. I had mentioned in the first video on spirituality of the word cosmic consciousness. It's also referred to as the universal mind, and Holmes writes a lot about it. I think the book's The Universal Mind by, I think it was John Holmes, can't remember, it's been a lot of years, talks about the universal mind or the cosmic consciousness experience. And when I first experienced that, there is that union, the ecstasy and bliss that one has when he sees that all life really is one. And it's hard to see that without lifting yourself up into these higher realms. It's hard to see that down in these lower physical worlds, because we tend to see so much separation. And when we start quieting the mind from thought, then everything becomes one. And things become more in the now. And so now you see a lot more about the now. There's been a long journey to that. when I started studying or interested in out-of-body travels. I can't remember what turned me on to out-of-body travels. It's so many years ago. But I remember I was living in state parks in a camper van, a Volkswagen camper van, and I was sitting around a campfire with a police detective, and this police detective said, well, if you're interested in out-of-body travel, study the Rosicrucians. So I immediately looked up the Rosicrucians, signed up, and they're a great old group, been around for many centuries, I suppose, and they teach you out-of-body travel, but they also teach you to use your mind a little bit. And I did get into mind control for a while, and making others do what I wanted them to do. I only had a short stay in that because it did not fit with who I am and what I recognize in life, because I would never ever want to create karma or interfere in another soul's journey. And I felt it at that time too. But many paths teach you mind control and things like that. There's a lot of levels. It's like school. It's like colleges. Different colleges have different academics, and some are considered better than others, and blah, 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 blah. And there's different livelihoods that you can study here. And it's the same spiritually. You have your channelers, and you have all levels of that. And then one gets much into the mind at first, metaphysics. So I went through a journey where at one time I felt that there was no God. I felt that, it's really just chemistry and physics. It's all just life expanding. And I didn't understand intelligence and consciousness enough at that time. And then I became a Jesus freak. I loved Jesus. I think I saw Jesus Christ Superstar 32 times. But I didn't see Jesus as God. I saw everything as God then. But I loved the teachings of Jesus. And not just in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. I think they picked those four Gospels because they were the most restrictive. I think if you look truly in the historic side of Christianity and Jesus, you'll find he was more in the agnostics, more in the Essenes, because I studied the Essenes. And when you and the History Channel has done many a program on the life and times of Jesus, and the agnostics and the 26 Gospels. And when I read the Gospel according to Joseph, which is supposed to be a much more accurate depiction of the actual teachings of Jesus, you begin to see how that is interwoven with all the other teachings on the planet, because there only is one God. So, I've been through a lot of journeys, through a lot of paths. I studied philosophy for a long time, and I studied Nietzsche. Alan Watts was a more modern-day philosopher, but I studied all the philosophers, and I got into all these different levels. But, it's just like in your life. Your journey has brought you to where you are now. I looked at the Radhaswami people. I looked at the different yogas and the Hindus. I looked at the Sufis. I love the Sufis. A lot of great Sufi masters out there, a lot of wisdom there. And we talked about Jalaladdin Rumi, and his master, Shamas Tabriz, extremely powerful master. The Ek masters. There's some paths that, and this was true back in Paul Twitchell's day, which he had studied in Kirpal Singh and the Singh group. And then there's people now that claim Kirpal Singh was a charlatan and all this. You know what? Everybody's a God person that looks to God. There's just different levels. And we in the earlier teachings on this planet, the Vaheguru or the Master was always put up as the doorway to God. And that there was always the student and the teacher, or the master and the chela. And therefore the master taught the chela and helped to expand the chela. And as the student expanded, they graduated from one level to another, like in high school. And each graduation was called an initiation. There was a little 13-year-old or 14-year-old boy that could give the light to people way back in the 70s. And he came to America, and he had claimed to have the power to give the light to people. And then he got mixed up with women and Mercedes-Benz, and pretty soon I think his own group had to get rid of him. You know, it's this sort of thing, you know. I remember Ram Dass was telling a story where he was, and Ram Dass was Albert, I forget his last name, but he was a friend of Timothy Leary, and they were doing a lot of LSD at the time, and trying to learn this out-of-body consciousness, or the shifting of states of consciousness, you know, and trying to do it in all types of ways, trying to break that solidified consciousness. And so his story of going to India and meeting a master, and it was a great story. And so he's a lot of spirituality, Ram Dass does. And so he was, I think his story was he was standing in line at an X-rated movie or something one time, and some people had read his book, come up to him, and he didn't know, he was standing in line at an X-rated movie, and the line was moving up, and he didn't know whether to move up or stand and talk to him like he wasn't in the line. I don't know if it was a true story or just a point he was getting across, because there is such a thing as balance. I think now, though, we've learned that the true master is unseen. A true master is not a Vaheguru where he sets himself up as the doorway, like we've set Jesus up as the doorway. Jesus definitely, if you read his teaching, said, no, not me. You will do better things than I. He was, and this is how it should be, in the sense that as souls awaken to their divinity, and you are wakening up to your divinity, you don't have an intermediary. That to me is not part of soul or Satnam consciousness, because when you become aware of yourself as soul, it isn't like there's me, there I am, or I. It just is. There's no separation. There's no points of identification to anything. There's no Master Chila. There's none of that. And yes, you learn how to continue to be more what the Sufis say, God absorbed. So it's understanding what the game is, and what the game of creation is, and who's playing the game. You're not going to know that until you learn how to go beyond your mind, your thoughts, and beyond your emotions, because these are already conditioned states. So to speak, like genetics. They're conditioned, and they're already full of propaganda and half-truths. They don't house the truth in essence, because these are tools that we use to experience life in these different levels, or these different heavens, as Jesus said. There's different realms. You can call them any name you want. There's all these different realms or levels that the Supreme Being has set up in creation. And each one has a body or a sheath or a wrapping around it, so soul or you can experience that level. As soul, you took on a mind, so you could think and you could create. And then you had to take on an emotional body to kind of power up the desires and to motivate thought. And then you took a physical body on, which is the most inert part of creation, which could house all these things, but certainly is an interesting level. So there's a lot of things out there at all levels. There's a lot of planets. I remember there was some doctorate, and I can't remember if this was on Nova or what it was, but she was talking about planets, and she picked up a handful of sand. She was standing on a beach, and she let the sand pour out of her hand, and she said, how many grains of sand do you think that's on this planet? Well, if anybody's been to the beach, your mind couldn't comprehend that. She said there's billions of planets for every grain of sand on this beach. So basically she's saying that as far as we can see physically, creation goes is infinite. Some people think it's a circle. sand. She was standing on a beach. And she let the sand pour out of her hand. And she said, how many grains of sand do you think that's on this planet? Well, if anybody's been to the beach, I mean, your mind couldn't comprehend that. She said there's billions of planets for every grain of sand on this beach. So basically she's saying that as far as we can see physically, creation goes is infinite. Some people think it's a circle. So there's a lot of thought out there about things, but thought separates you from reality, which is who you are. And this is why you hear a lot about living in the now and be present. I remember when I read J. Krishnamurti, and that's Kristmurti, J. Krishnamurti. And he was supposed to be this guru or master of millions of Hindus. And he said, not me. He said, I'm no master. He said, but I'll teach you how you can see truth. Because after all, the reality of spirituality is you. And you don't separate yourself from God. It's like that saying I said in my first video on spirituality. The seeker of God never finds God. There's some days you have to graduate from being the student or the chela and become the teacher. And then you can become the teacher's teacher. And you can go on. But as you grow that way and you truly lose your ego, then you're no longer the teacher, you just are. You might call yourself the way shower, if you will. It's like in health. I try to help you guys to watch out for the pitfalls and what you can take to help this and that, but I don't know. I mean, I'm always learning too. We're becoming a team. And that's how I see creation, because I'm like Jalaluddin Rumi. I see all of you as God. I see everything as God. I see this incredible mango as God. I'm going, my God, I'm going to enjoy you. You know? And that's the thing. You know? And that lifts you up into a much higher level of experience. And as you merge, you will see how that changes the way you perceive life. You no longer are the children playing in the playground. You become more of the creator of the playground. And you can do whatever your journey is from those areas. But karma and reincarnation to me is a very, very strong reality. And I think you'll find it even in Christianity. And I don't think anybody should be afraid. I think all ministers and priests, I think our biggest problem with this planet is we don't teach you reap what you sow enough. If you knew you hurt somebody, you were going to get it back. You'd only do it so long. You know, if you hit somebody with a hammer and you immediately got hit back with a hammer, you wouldn't do it too long. And that's the problem, that there's so much karma built up that you don't get hit with a hammer right off. But if you drive in traffic and you pull out in front of somebody, you just watch. Somebody's going to pull out in front of you before long. It's there. So, but a lot of this is working off some of the past karma, and the immediate karma you don't get. I've always thought if you saw karma immediately, boy, would it change the nature of things. You wouldn't hurt anything or hurt anybody. And there's no need to anyway, because life should be full of beauty and love and joy. You know, there's that old saying, you should love everything, but you don't have to like everything. There's some things you're just not going to like. In Christianity, I think Jesus said, be as little children again. That's living in the now. So if you get mad about something, then drop it and go on to the next state. But I can tell you, if you live so much in the now, you're right in the present moment where there's no thought. You can drive down the same road that you've driven down every day for 50 years and it'll be new. Each day you drive it, it'll be, oh look, I've never been here before. Look, that's neat. Because there's no memory anymore. In the present moment, there's no past or future. It is now. And in that moment, that is the infinite. And that's so simple to grasp. But it's difficult to achieve in the sense that the mind keeps wanting you to use it. My mind chatters on sometimes. I say, I'll sit it over there and let it do its chattering. Last night I got to chattering. It's like, oh, I couldn't sleep because of that. Just shut up, you know. That's that mind, you know. But one should never take offense at any of this. Spirituality is really growth, and it should be beautiful growth. You should never know that nothing's ever static on this planet. And individuality is the key to the beauty. Not everybody dressing the same, not everybody talking the same. You know, that's stagnation. That's compression. And if you want freedom and love and joy and bliss, then lose your desire for everything. Just don't desire anything. Start using your intuitiveness to move you, to eat, to whatever. You know, being in that present moment is, like I said, oftentimes difficult, but it brings such joy and ecstasy. And it brings the power of consciousness through you because you are absorbing with the infinite, not identifying with the finite. This is all about where you place your attention or whether you become your attention. You know, when we take on these bodies, it's kind of like looking into a bucket of water. Who's the viewer? We can look down through the different worlds and we can play in each world. But who's the viewer? When you're looking at something, who's the viewer? Who's the thinker of the thought? There's an old saying, is it, I think, therefore I am? Or is it, I am, therefore I think? And I think you're going to find it is, I am, therefore I think. So have fun with these. I know my time isn't real long. In spirituality, I always never have a lot to say at any given time because I've just learned that in the moment there's nothing but just sitting around enjoying each other's company and being and dancing to the single note of the flute of God, you know. If you ever have a chance to view that Circle of Iron movie, enjoy that. That's pretty good for Bruce Lee to write that. I thought it was pretty cool. David Carradine, again, was the master, and pretty cool. You know, the student and the master, then the student becomes the master. And the same thing in health. You know, don't always be the seeker of knowledge. That's where the mistake of a lot of people get. They think they have to have all this knowledge, and this is the problem with our country here in America particularly. We pride the intellect to our dismay and to our disadvantage. The intellect is why we're where we're at. If you pride anything, pride consciousness and simplicity, because that's the key to happiness. Intellectualism has trapped us and separated us. And this is why. We sit up there with our suits and our ties and I always think, boy, you guys look uncomfortable. Why don't you take that tie off? I've never worn a tie. You don't have to wear a tie. Loosen yourself up a little bit. Loosen up. Take the bras off, so to speak. You know, loosen yourself up. Feel life. Be in the moment. Be present. And if you've got a spiritual guide, good. Use that. Listen to what that spiritual guide says, but don't lose yourself. Never realize that you're the living presence. You're the reality. You only have one thing to go by. You have only one thing to look to, and that's you. The problem is perversion comes in with the mind and emotions. So if one seeks anything in life, he should seek the now, in the sense of stop thinking and stop talking, and, you know. I always remember Phoebe Quantz, a very old Eckmaster, who told me that one time, and I brought that up, you know, stop thinking and stop talking, and there's nothing you won't know. And, of course, I'm already practicing in the now, so that resonated with me perfectly. And I used to, he used to play with me a lot. I think I told you that when I would give lectures, and I've given probably 1,000,000 lectures in my life, he used to pop here all the time and talk to me and give me a spiritual dissertation while I'm giving a lecture. And I appreciate those things later because I realized it was breaking me from my mind. And that's really important, is to break yourself from the use of your mind and realize you're not your mind, you're separate than your mind, and start being more of who you are. I think, in our children, the biggest education jump we can make is slow down and quit trying to make our children some intellectual gurus because they forget about God. Remember I told you the little girl that asked the baby to tell me about God again? I'm about to forget. We should never forget our divinity. We should never forget, because that means God forgets. And that's, of course, the drama gets good when you forget, but then it also gets the negative side going as well, and so it is far better when you maintain consciousness. Some people have fun forgetting. I've had fun forgetting in different movies and things I thought was really good. I saw the Harry Potter movie the other night, and I thought it was pretty good. I've always thought Harry Potter should be much stronger, because in the ways of masters, they're pretty powerful, and negative forces haven't got a chance with a powerful master. But that's the way the story goes. But I loved it when he was with the old master in the light, because I've been to places that are so lit up. I remember I was in a world one time that was almost solid. It was like cloud puff white, and everything was lined in gold. And there was all these spiritual beings with these white robes lined in gold. And I was so buzzed there was no word. There was no way. I remember when I was initiated to the fifth plane, which is Satnam, and only those that know that will understand this, but I was 10 days in the city I call the city of light. And there was no words. There was beings all over, but there was nothing spoken. I roamed this world for 10 days, night and day. I'd be sitting here talking to my clients, and I would totally be in that world. And it was interesting. But there's so much interesting experiences to be had away from this planet and into these worlds. You should never fear these things. Get strong, though. I remember talking a little bit on the health videos about channelers. And if you're a channeler, stop. Gain your control. You don't have to channel Saint Germain. You don't have to channel these entities. You really don't. You have to be careful, because some of them are not Saint Germain. Some of them are not some of these Michael and some of these things. You have to be careful, because when you open your consciousness to the universe, anybody can sit in. So, full of love, if I'm saying things that upset you, forgive me, but there's so much to the worlds out there, and I've spent my life through a lot of things and a lot of experiences, and so I can just tell you mine, as goofy and as crazy as they might sound. So if you're just interested in the health side, then you might not want to listen to these spiritual videos, because some people might consider me a wacko, but I'm a God man, and that's all I breathe, and that's all I live. There's nothing else in my life. And I've been that way most of my life, because I'm a devotee of the Supreme Being, period. And so I bring out to you what I can and what I'm here for. So I want you to enjoy all these as much as you can, and if I can give you any hint to help you, I will. And I will work with those of you that will have me help you. And all these other levels too. That's what I'm here for. So you'll find your progress in your health also a spiritual journey with me. And that's the fun of it, isn't it? I mean, the fun of it is to get happier and to get more aware and to release these chains that bind us. you have to be careful because some of them are not Saint Germain, some of them are not some of these Michael and some of these things. You have to be careful because when you open your consciousness to the universe, anybody can sit in. So, full of love, if I'm saying things that upset you, forgive me, but there's so much to the worlds out there, and I've spent my life through a lot of things and a lot of experiences, and so I can just tell you mine, as goofy and as crazy as they might sound. So if you're just interested in the health side, then you might not want to listen to these spiritual videos because some people might consider me a wacko, but I'm a God man, and that's all I breathe and that's all I live. There's nothing else in my life. And I've been that way most of my life because I'm a devotee of the Supreme Being, period. And so I bring out to you what I can and what I'm here for. So I want you to enjoy all these as much as you can, and if I can give you any hint to help you, I will. And I will work with those of you that will have me help you. And in all these other levels too. That's what I'm here for. So you'll find your progress in your health also a spiritual journey with me. And that's the fun of it, isn't it? I mean, the fun of it is to get happier and to get more aware and to release these chains that bind us. So when you have desires, they're like ball and chains. Anytime you want something, you're hooked to that, and that limits your totality. In reality, you don't need anything because you have everything. Materialities, we want this or we want that. Even we want the mango. That can be a desire. Sometimes I do fall into the desire world. I have a desire for a good watermelon or a good ripe mango. Those things can haunt you. I remember I used to be fascinated with that show years ago, Kung Fu, on TV, because I was into martial arts for years. I loved the philosophies and the body moves. And I loved the philosophy of the Shaolin and that whole Buddhist, and I just love all of that. I love the beauty of consciousness and peace and love and joy. I mean, we should be there. And so I remember the old master to Cain, and he was talking about being desireless. And Cain said, don't you, or little grasshopper, said, don't you, master, desire anything? And he said, I only have one desire. And he said, well, that's not so bad. He said, but it's a desire nonetheless. So interesting, and sometimes these things are, doesn't have to be as focused as that, but one wants to grow spiritually. I think now on this planet, it's obvious that we are all growing spiritually. Most of your comments are so beautiful, and I think that, and I hate to use the word think, but again, I see things as we're merging, we're coming together, and those people that are open spiritually will be coming together and impacting this world in ways that's very much needed. So thank you all. Thank you all for viewing this tape on spirituality. It's a short one. I'll keep making shorter ones, but you'll find that I generally don't have a lot to say other than surrender. Be in the now. Learn to stop thinking. Learn to control the mind. Use the mind as it's separate than you, and separate those thought processes from you as consciousness. And it's going to take some practice because you've been down here for a while, and at this level, man likes to train you to be here and not with God. So there's not enough of education with that to train you to maintain your nowness, your divinity, your consciousness, and then think when needed. We're taught to think constantly and desire constantly. So it takes a bit to break that, but certainly worth it. Frustrating. So thank you again. Monday morning I'll come in early again and answer all your questions. There's some good ones here I would like to get to. And I apologize that we're slow getting these up. You might not even get this one. You probably won't get this one till Monday anyway, because we're running a little behind on them. And we've got a great testimonial coming for you. excuse me, a chiropractor's wife with MS. She did a great video, and she's just really took on and wore the robe. And now she's walking, and just got an email this morning. We're walking in the mall, and he's following with her wheelchair, but she doesn't need it. So it's getting better and better for her. And she'll pull out of this. She'll get walking more and more and more, running, and then she's done. And I say this, but I put these on here not for ego. I want you to know the power of what your body and what the Supreme Being has out there and what it's created, and the power that we can have access to regenerate this organism and also our spirituality. So thank you so much, and love to you all, and thank you for viewing these videos. Namaste, and thank you very much. Bye-bye.